Welcome to the GoPROcast, where we invite business doers who are changing lives by sharing their stories, their strategies and tactics, and who bravely talk about their failures that actually led to their biggest successes. Now it's time to Go Pro with Jeremy Torres. My guest today is the author of Thoughtfully Fit, a highly sought-after coach and consultant who has worked with more than 500 organizations in over 48 industries to create high-performing people and teams. She balances her thriving business with raising her two energetic teenage daughters and competes in triathlons. Please welcome to the GoPROcast, Darcy Luoma. Welcome.
Hello. Oh, so good to be here, Jeremy. Thank you. What an awesome introduction.
Well, I appreciate it. I've been waiting for this interview for quite some time. I know we had to put it off. I had a hiccup in, I think it was a family issue going on with that, but so glad to finally be here with you.
I'm thrilled to finally be here as well. Thanks for having me.
So I'm a little rusty because it's been a few weeks since I did one of these shows, but I do remember I start off with asking only one question of every guest, and that is to tell me something good.
I love it. You got to get that music in the background. You got all these awesome tech things going
good.
On. Yeah. I sold my house this week. That's something good. I've been here for 22 years and we decided to move. And with this market, it just went like lickety split.
Well, okay, let me ask you something. So that is good, but that I could swing a dead cat, or I could have 50 dead cats and sell this house. But did you buy something yet? Because that's the hard part in this market.
It is really hard. I did on a whim. I bought something in January, brand new construction.
Good for you. Yeah. That's the tough part. Yeah, my wife is a broker, and we're actually looking for ourselves because we had 4 kids, and now we have 4 roommates because they're all over 18, and they're not moving, so we're moving, and we can't find anything that we know we're not overpaying for, and so we're just trying to be patient and do the right thing. But it's fun. It's a good time of our lives.
How fantastic. And oh my gosh, you have a life stage that I've got 2 kids and they're still home, and boy, that creates a lot of added challenges.
Oh, they're fun. No, my 4 kids are best friends. They're 18 to 24. They're all go-givers and go-getters, and they're all big-hearted and good kids, and we got a great situation, but I still don't want to live with them. Oh boy. So let's get down to it. Tell us about kind of where this started. You grew up in Wisconsin, and I usually don't do this first, but I'm gonna bust out this book, and I'm gonna keep it at just the right light to show the colors because the green screen stuff. But one of my favorite parts, and I'm gonna start you off by asking you about this because this is one of my favorites. And it's when you used to run around Lake Monona, right, in Madison, Wisconsin, 10 miles. That was kind of boring sometimes. And you said, why do you do this to your best friend? And it was so we can climb mountains, which I love the transfer of that to business. And I'm going to let you do your best translation. But tell us about growing up in Wisconsin and how you came to be the fantastic Darcy that you are now.
So I have been in Wisconsin since for decades, but I actually grew up in Minnesota in the Twin Cities. And I was a math and German major in college, which is just bizarre because I do nothing with either now.
It's funny.
Yeah. And I spent the first probably 20 years of my professional career in the political field, in government and campaigns and nonprofit sector. Okay. And so in January of 2013, the U.S. Senator that I was working for, I'd been working for him for 12 years, he retired. And that's when I launched my business, doing coaching and consulting and training full time. And I love what I do.
Right. So, but to get back to running around these lakes so you can be ready to climb mountains.
Yes, thank you.
What does that mean to you? Like, why did you say that? And I got my own, cognitive feelings. I loved it. I highlighted it in dog ear. But why did you say that? What did it mean?
Oh my gosh. And thank you for, I got distracted.
Bringing you back.
Because I was thinking, I grew up in Minnesota. Well, what I've realized is when when I would train for whether it was, marathons or a triathlon or cross country ski races, and I was fit, they were easier and they were more fun. And then the added bonus was that when I was fit, because I had been training for these races and we would go on some adventure travel, we could be like, yeah, well, sign me up. We're going to hike to the top of Mount St. Helens. And it was a possibility because we were fit. Yeah. And that is a direct translation to the work that I do with clients, whether they're leaders or managers or executives or teams. When they train and practice to handle the adversity, the conflict, the challenging situations that inevitably come up, they're easier to deal with because they are thoughtfully fit to handle those things.
Yeah, it's like feeling those grounders, right? Every day, getting ready for the game. It's just not when, it's if, or it's not if, it's when it's going to happen, because every person experiences adversity, some a lot worse than others. I have my share of, I wrote mighty big adversity checks when I was younger, and then again as in my 20s and a little bit in my 30s again. And so I really feel like I've been through the mill, right? And so I earned my mill by going through the mill. And you had some adversity with your husband of 10 years, and he's a stay-at-home dad and taking care of your daughters while you were out here growing the business. And he ran afoul of the law in a bit of an embarrassing and immoral way, right? With some inappropriate internet stuff, right? And that must have been a very, very trying time. And I think that I'm speaking for me, I bet it was almost harder for you to face your daughters than even for you to swallow it and absorb it. Is that safe to say?
It was the worst moment of my life, having to tell them that their dad was in jail, had been arrested, their dad who they loved, who had never, ever not tucked them into bed at night, all of a sudden, without notice, is swept away and taken out of our lives. And when he was arrested that day, he never came home. And yes, having to navigate the trauma for my daughters was the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah. So how did that affect you and your business and just your trying to get yourself right? Now, you can't prepare yourself. There's no lakes you can run around to prepare for that mountain. So how do you, what came of what you learned through going through that?
Yeah. I mean, there's no lake to run around. You're right. My pastor said, gosh, Darcy, there's no playbook for this. There's a playbook when somebody dies.
It's a good one. There's no playbook for this. I love that one.
Yeah, somebody dies, you drop off a casserole, you go to the funeral, you write a card, somebody's arrested for sexual assault of a minor and in prison for 10 years. How do you handle that? I certainly didn't know how. And so now, of course, I need to pause and ask what your question was.
It was just about, you couldn't get ready you can't prepare for that. So when something that big happens to you, how do you cope with it? And then what benefits, because there's got to be a benefit of going through that you now can apply and share with others. And what do you see that you gain from having to go through this?
Right. Well, so just like training around those, all those dozens of miles, hundreds of miles, thousands of miles training in the same way, I've been training my whole life for how to communicate better, how to deal with conflict, how to have leadership. So I was developing this model, this thoughtfully fit model. And fast forward a couple of years after my husband's arrest, I was working with these book consultants and to write the book about the model. And I said, gosh, in like 5 years, I want to write another book about how thoughtfully fit helped me to navigate this crisis when my husband was arrested, because I could not have made it through without this. And they both looked at each other and they're like, yeah, that is this book.
Yes.
I'm like, no, that's not this book. This book is talking about how other people can train to be thoughtfully fit to handle crisis in their lives. And they're like, yeah. And the best way to train them is to tell the stories of how you used it in your own life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And lead by example.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
stories speak volumes. People learn through stories. So, and to your second point, you're absolutely right that I am stronger. My daughters are stronger. We're more resilient. We have a better relationship than we would have had we not gone through this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
before this happened, when I would read stories about, people would say they lost a limb, or they had some tragedy, and that if they had to do it again, they would choose that tragedy. And I'm like, come on, you would
Yes.
not. I'm sitting here telling you my life is better because of the
Yeah.
struggles and what we had to do to go through that. I know that's not the case for everybody,
No, but I
but
can
I
get it.
learned a lot.
Yeah. 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 I see it. And there's certain things have happened in my life that some are worse than others, and I wouldn't wish them on anybody. But for what I had to go through to cope with them and to protect the others in my life, I wouldn't change anything either, except for, some of it was suicide related. So dealing with the passing of people who you love is tough, but my responses to those I wouldn't change. And so,
Yeah.
and I became tougher and better for it. But these are the things that we have this in common, that you can't prepare for these sort of things. And it's really the discipline that you've instilled in yourself before that kind of got you ready to exemplify the real you, to deal with it. Right? Because it's so
Yes,
easy just to throw your hands up and go, man, it's just too tough. Life sucks. And,
absolutely.
you know,
And if I can build on one thing you just said, when you mentioned suicide, I will tell you, my college roommate and one of my closest friends, but before her 40th birthday, committed suicide.
hmm
It was horrible, awful, terrible,
yeah,
unexpected. What came from that, even that, the silver lining is that I've had a handful of times since then, that was 10
yeah.
years ago, where somebody has come to me with in a bad place with depression and crying, where I've asked them, are you suicidal?
Wow, that's a great question. That is a perfect way to ask too. A lot of people, I'm a suicide counselor, actually, or not a counselor, excuse me. I speak on suicide, so I'm trained in suicide prevention, and that's textbook. Uh, Most people say, "You're not thinking of hurting yourself, are you? You're not thinking of doing something dumb, right? Are you? You're not thinking of killing yourself, are you?" And that's not the way to do it. You did it perfectly. And so, how did that? What was the kind of the
Well,
response?
what's interesting is in the first case, the person, my friend, he said, "Oh gosh, no." And I said, I'm glad to hear that. And if you ever are,
hmm
would you either call me or a hotline, or would you commit to me? Would you
Yes,
promise that you would call somebody in that moment?
that's
And he's like,
awesome.
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Fast forward 5 years, his wife calls me and says, I want to let you know my husband's in the hospital. He had an episode, and he
yeah.
said the only reason he's in the hospital is because he promised you 5 years ago if he
Wow,
got to this place. Yeah,
chills.
I had goosebumps. I'm
Yes,
like, are you kidding me?
yeah, yeah. And
So
you don't know what you say and how it sticks with people.
yeah, and so I mean, I miss Tasha greatly, my dear friend who committed suicide,
Yeah,
and yet she lives on
sure.
through giving me strength to have tough conversations that I never ever would have had the courage to have
Yes,
previously.
yeah, yeah. And that's I think kind of the things that happen to us. I believe in sort of reincarnation. I don't want to get too deep into that whole thing, spirituality and stuff, but I really do think you're put on this planet right now in this time with this suit of armor that you don't even know you have. You kind of grow into it, but it's in you already. You've already earned those stripes, and all you're doing is kind of serving others. And that's how I walk. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But once I did, it made it a lot easier to deal with these kind of things. It's like, oh, this is my job. That's my job. Being there for your daughters and for your clients. So let's get back to the fun stuff about your
Yeah,
clients, because
yeah.
we could talk about that forever, and I really do think it benefits a lot of people. But let's talk about how you help people. So being a coach, how would I know if I'm talking to somebody? What would they say to me that would make me realize that this is maybe somebody that needs to talk to Darcy Luoma?
So who seeks out coaching? Who would benefit from coaching?
If I'm talking to somebody, because I'm a coach too, and I talk to people, but I can't coach everybody. The world is so big, and I'm only one person. I love my clients, but if I'm talking to somebody, what do they say to me that tells me that that person is right for you?
Got it.
What's your jam?
Yeah. So everything that our company does is around creating high performing people and teams and addressing the hurdles and the obstacles that get in the way of being high performing. So the people that we work with, the individuals, the leaders, the teams, the organizations are not those who are trying to convince that they need to be high performing.
Right.
They're not the ones, right? If you are just happy with your life, fabulous, great,
Yes.
live your life. The clients that we attract and love to work with are those who want to address those obstacles and say, I really want to get to that next level, whatever that next level is. It could be the next level of success for business, could be the next level of certification for yoga or for something that they're passionate about. It could be that they want to have more stillness and more downtime and more white space. So it's the person who's craving something to be different and change in their life, and they want to work at it to make that change happen.
So you mentioned stillness. I'm glad you did, because I want to kind of take half a step back and talk about your principles or your process, and what the book's about, Thoughtfully Fit, and really talking about a process, a 3-step process. The first one is when you are dealing with anything, that you have 3 things to do: to pause, think, and act, kind of in a circular manner. I love you.
There it is.
You know what you get? You get 2 of these. Very rare. That's what a good, I love you. So yeah, pause, think, and act. Tell us a little about those 3.
Yeah, that's the core of the model. And so just like if you want to be physically fit, it doesn't matter if you're going to be a cross-country skier or a golfer or a basketball player, or you just want to take the stairs instead of the elevator. When you have a strong core, every movement's easier. You're less likely to get injured. Same way, if you want to handle yourself thoughtfully when there's crisis, adversity, challenges, you can engage your thoughtfully fit core, which is those 3 steps. That's just like doing your ab workout, right? Pause, think, and act. Gets you off of autopilot so you don't have that knee-jerk reaction when somebody sends you that biting email. You don't hit reply in a moment of anger or reply all.
So many times.
Right? You pause. And then think, how do I want to show up? I wonder what's going on. This is not like this person to be this angry. And then you act thoughtfully. That's the core.
Yes, and then I think that also applies, though. I was, in reading and writing some notes and stuff. I am an act, just because you said there's kind of 3 people. Some people pause, and then they pause too much, right? And they're afraid to act. Paralyzation, or then they think too much, right? Paralyzation by analyzation. So they pause, then they think, and they're like, well, they just can't get past the thinking. And then there's those, and that's me. I'm 1, 2, 13, right? I just go. So I think it would also apply not to just adversity or going through issues, but where I am in my life, I get to try new things all the time. And sometimes I do too much. Sometimes I think of something and then I just go for it. And it's probably not the smartest idea. It's not the most efficient. It takes away from other things that I've got momentum in and helping people. And so I think this would also apply in just a lot of different ways in your life that you are acting or thinking about doing things. And these are great first 3.
100%. It applies everywhere. It doesn't have to be just with crisis. And what I'll highlight that you just beautifully underscored is that you have to do all 3 in order.
Yeah.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Yes.
So if you're really good at acting, it's going to be helpful to pause for a moment and think so that you don't act impulsively, right?
Yeah.
Or overreact. If you're really good at thinking, you might have to, you think, but then you overthink and you get analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
At some point, you do actually need to then act. Then you can pause again and think.
Yeah, reassess.
Reassess. How did
That's
that go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we call that the strategic compass, right? So Dr. Gosh, I forget his name. Oh, stupid name. I forget his name, but back in the 60s and 70s, he replaced like the roadmap. Darcy, Marcy Dashko wrote about it. She was one of his mentors, about replacing a roadmap with a compass, a strategic compass. And that's kind of familiar with these words, is that when you redo it, you're really revisiting, am I going the right way, right? So I'm not looking at the map, I'm kind of looking at my compass. Am I going the right way? Because we don't know where we're going. And a roadmap kind of predetermines you know where you're going. And that's why we like to use the compass theory. So then the second part of this is the internal, which is where you said stillness, strength, and endurance. And so tell me a little bit about those three and what level of the, the process would you start with the internal steps of these three?
Yeah, absolutely. So those 6 practices are
Look
what
at
we
you.
found, Matt, align with the 6 hurdles that get in the way of being high performing. And so 3 of those are internal, where we get in our own way. Stillness is about quieting the mind. And clients would say, oh my gosh, I'll share with you the hurdles. The first one, there's so much to do, I can't even think. There's a lack of stillness. And so people are not able to be creative and strategic. And then that second hurdle is not handling yourself the way you'd like. So that's all about strength. In the Thoughtfully Fit model, strength is being able to consciously choose how you're going to show up in any situation, no matter how you're feeling, right? So it takes some strength. Sometimes it's a heavy lift to be able to self-manage. I just came out of traffic and, I'm so stressed out. I'm walking into the meeting and smiling and shaking hands.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of being like, oh, I'm so mad. And then people are like, ooh.
And you're more likely to control yourself at work, but when you're at home, you have less likely to control yourself. Then you're going in and kicking the dog and yelling at the kids. And
that's right.
Yep.
And then that third hurdle on the internal side is clients would come in saying, I feel stuck, stuck in a relationship that's not working, stuck in a job that is frustrating, stuck in a project. And that's all about endurance, which is being able to overcome those obstacles in order to get unstuck, to move forward and not just stall out completely.
Yeah, one of the things that you wrote about and that I really identified with was, what story are you telling yourself under the endurance, right? Because that is where I go wrong. I don't work out. I hate working out. Weights are too heavy, first of all. I have the heart of a muscle car, right? Like, I go to from 80 to 170 in 3.5 seconds, which is not a good thing for a heart. It's a good thing for a muscle car, but I just can't do it. And I tell myself I can't do it. I start to do something physical in a gym or something, and I just talk myself right out of it. Where in other places in life, I really don't do that. But when in working out and trying to be healthy, like I'm in awe of what you do physically, I am so bad at that. So that's my biggest challenge, but at least I know it. I admit it. I try to get help for it. I try to keep going back to the well, but I always end up hurting myself because I'm also kind of a klutz. So or I don't pull back enough. But so that really took me. What story are you telling yourself? And then the external, which is the other part of your wheel. Now, does it have to be in order with the internal or external, or could you flip those?
No, I mean, the reality is there are places and obstacles where we get in our own way, which are those internal. And then there are challenges where we have with other people, right? External challenges. So those, do you want me to just go through those?
Yes. Yeah. Because podcasters are listening only. They can't see your awesome graphics, which I love. You're one of the first too, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I love our shared love for technology and commitment. So that first external hurdle is, I'd be fine if only you were different, right? If somebody else would change.
It's everybody else.
It's anybody and everybody else. If my boss would just smile when he comes in the room, or if my neighbor would stop mowing the grass at 7 a.m. when I want to sleep in, right? And so that aligns with the Thoughtfully Fit practice of flexibility, which is about stretching to accept others just for who they are, instead of putting all this energy into trying to change them, which is exhausting. Then the second external is relationships that don't work. And this is the Thoughtfully Fit practice of balance, which means your relationships are out of balance. Maybe you're over functioning and the other person's under functioning, right? So you're constantly.
Well, yeah. What's interesting about that one, though, is what I tell people, my experience is that it's our perception that I'm over balancing, and it's my perception that they're under react or under committing or delivering. And it's really because you can't put yourself in their shoes. So you don't really give them the credit of the lifting that they're doing. So really, if you take that and if you feel that way, it might be true, especially for overachievers. You sound like me. I think I'm an overachiever. But when I really looked at my counterparts and I was thinking, I did 3 times the work they all did. Well, maybe I'm not. Maybe I just don't realize what they're doing, especially in a decentralized workplace that we are in now, where everyone's working from home. And you really have to take in consideration the other people's efforts that there's no way you can see.
Yeah.
So, but that probably goes back to some flexibility and understanding, right?
Absolutely. And being able to step into that perspective of and someone else's shoes and increase your empathy.
Yeah,
Which,
empathy. That's a new one for me. Newish
yeah.
in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And then the last is agility.
Yeah, that's right. And that's reacting poorly when blindsided, right? So you're caught off guard and you overreact in the moment instead of pausing to think, take a breath. How do I want to show up, and being able to respond
So
thoughtfully?
you have the one thing that you can control, and that's your response.
That's it.
And I love that you quoted one of my favorites, Stephen Covey, is to seek to understand, and then you'll be understood, or then be understood. I quoted him in my book as well, but more about proactive and mindset versus reactive. But same book, different chapter, same awesomeness though.
Absolutely. I mean, he is like the thought leader of all thought leaders around how you want to show up and be a strong leader.
Yeah, now his son is doing a good job now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Covey Jr., yeah.
You bet.
So what is when you wrote the book, you got this stuff, this is all amazing stuff. How long did this take to develop, and what do you do about what's your favorite kind of delivery system of working with people on this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I spent 5 years researching Thoughtfully Fit and thousands of hours behind that model, and so now it's infused in everything we do. I do keynotes on Thoughtfully Fit. We do coaching. We do trainings and workshops. We just launched the Thoughtfully Fit Gym, which is like where you can go to train your brain. It's like the Peloton for your brain. And so if anybody wants to come and check out free workouts, we've got the gym, thoughtfullyfitgym.com. That is one of our most exciting, newest delivery models, because with COVID, people have gotten really comfortable being able to access their professional development online. And that's the place, just like you said earlier, like you play like you practice. So that's a place that you can go to practice being able to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting poorly, being able to set boundaries and say no, being able to accept others for who they are.
That's wonderful. And so to get a hold of you, the best way is would it be the email, which is dlcc@darcyluoma.com, but Loma is LUOMA.com. And Darcy is DARCY. So just like my life, I do everything backwards. Let me just do it all in one shot here. It's DLCC@Darcy, DARCY, Loma, LUOMA.com. And then the website, there's 2 websites, but www.darcyloma, DARCYLUOMA.com, or what's the other one?
Thoughtfullyfit.com.
Thoughtfully Fit. You don't have to spell that one.
Right.
Spelled traditionally, right?
And on thoughtfullyfit.com, for anybody who's listening saying, I wonder which of those 6 hurdles is my biggest, there's a free quiz. It's 2 or 3 minutes. It'll tell you your biggest challenge and then a strategy on how you can start training immediately to overcome it.
And we have it right here. It's just that you can't take the quiz because it's written in green, and I have a green screen, but that's the website. It's an awesome website. I spent a little bit of time on it, and appreciate you being on the GoPROcast. I definitely am extending a invitation to Get Down to Business, the new talk show that's going to be coming out next month. I think we can do some really good deep dive stuff here. We can take like 2 hours and be across 5 or 6 platforms live with no safety net, take calls and field some questions for you, really shine a spotlight on this. I think it'd be great.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy, and just all the good that you're putting out in the world.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm trying. I try my best. So I said, to get to life that I'm living right now, thanks to some hard work, and get to share and help as many people up that ladder now that can possibly come. So, thanks to people like you that allow me to have this platform.
Thank you.
Okay, don't go anywhere. Stand by. I want to give you a proper goodbye. But right now, I just want to say thank you to everybody who really takes the time to support this show and everything that I do. We've got the new show coming out in May. This is actually the first time I've mentioned it. It's called Get Down to Business, we think, to be determined. But keep up the subscribing and the sharing and the liking and the commenting and all that stuff that comes along that with making this A, successful, and B, it lets me know that we're doing the things that you want to see. So also, you can write me at jeremytorsk@atlanticbusinesscoaching.com. Give me your thoughts and ideas about what we could do next, what you'd like to see. But for now, I'd just like you guys to not stay, how about GoPro. Bye-bye.